kitchen, and I'm just going to do a little tutorial on how I make my pizza dough. Last week when I put up those videos about my barbecue chicken pizza and my antipasto pizza, I had a few people ask me to show how I make the pizza crust. I have a video up that I made a couple of years ago about how I make my restaurant style breadsticks. This is a very similar dough. In fact, it's the same dough. I altered the breadstick dough a little bit by adding seasonings right to the dough. You can certainly do that for your pizza as well, but I usually just leave it plain. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a how to make my pizza dough video, and that way you'll have it to refer back to. It's really, really simple, and it has very few ingredients, and it was inspired by a friend of mine, Barely Seen Ranch, who used to be on YouTube but hasn't uploaded a video in a very long time. So Gwen, I hope you're doing all right, and let's get to this. We're going to start with about 2.5 cups of warm water, and I just take it right out of the hot tap because my bowl is cold and it's a little chilly in my house, so it'll make it the perfect temperature. Huh? My hands are freezing. My hands are freezing as well. What we're going to do now is we're going to, this is for a double batch. I will put the single batch recipe on the website, and I now have a printer friendly option on my website, so we're going to use 2 tablespoons of yeast.
That is regular yeast?
That's just regular yeast. Yep. We're going to use a teaspoon of salt, and this is Himalayan pink salt, not pink curing salt. It's been brought to my attention that I should absolutely make that known. We're going to use a tablespoon of sugar, whatever sugar is your preference. It doesn't matter. Brown, white, tan, refined, unrefined, it doesn't matter. We're going to do a couple of good glugs of a good quality olive oil, and then we're going to do, we're not going to do that, don't knock over your olive oil, but I'm going to go ahead and put 6 cups of, today I'm using bread flour. Then we're going to pop this on the mixer with the bread hook, with the dough hook. And we're going to let that get mixing. Once it becomes a cohesive mass, we're going to knead it for 7 minutes. So I'm going to get my timer out, and I'm going to clear it, and I'm going to set it for 7 minutes, and I'm going to wait. You'll see it come together. In the meantime, I preheated my oven to 400 degrees. And I'm just going to show you the dough at this point, because last week I showed you the pizza, and you can refer to those videos, which I will link in the description bar below. At this point, you'll watch your dough carefully, and you'll decide if you need to add more liquid or if you need to add more flour, depending on the weather in your area and the moisture content of your flour, and how long you may have had your flour in your storage, or how long it's sat on the grocery store shelf. It will determine whether or not you're going to need to add more liquid or more flour. It also has a lot to do with the weather. So I'm going to turn this up a bit. I actually think I'm going to add a little bit more flour. Take about a half a cup of flour. You want it to ball up, and it's not quite there yet. But you also want to give the dough enough time to absorb the liquid that's in there. It might still be absorbing, so you have to just give it a little time. But I've been doing this long enough to know that if it's still sticking to the bottom of the bowl at this point, it needs a little more flour. So I added about 1/4 1/4 of a cup the first time, and I'm adding another 1/4 of a cup now. And it's looking just about where I want it to look. I can tell on the bottom of the bowl, you can see that it's starting to separate from the bottom of the bowl. It doesn't look like a big floppy mass. And it's starting to kind of ball itself up. It's going to collect all of the debris that it's laid on the side of the bowl, and all of that's going to become a part of the dough ball. So we're going to let this go for about 7 minutes, and when we come back, I'll show you what happens next. Okay, our 7 minutes of kneading time is up. Now we're just going to take the hook off. I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to have Rick switch places with me. It's going to be a slightly soft dough. You know, pizza dough is a bit sticky, all right? So don't be alarmed when you pull it out of here and it's a little stickier than you're used to, all right? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to spray this with a little, you can just put some oil in there if you want to, no big deal. Whoopsie. All right. I'm just going to form it into a bit of a ball. I'm going to spray the top. You don't have to do this. You can just use oil. It's no big deal. I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to let it sit for about 15 minutes. If you need to let it sit a bit longer, that's fine. But if you're going to let it sit longer than that, you should, pardon me, you should put this in the refrigerator. Okay, you can make this in the morning, and then you can put it in the fridge so that when you come home in the evening, your pizza dough will be ready to go. You can, at this point, you can divide this into two because I've made a double batch, and you can wrap them tightly with plastic wrap, put them in Ziploc bags, and place them in the freezer. That way the next time you run to make, if you wanted to make like multiple balls of dough, then you would have them available in your freezer instead of purchasing them at the grocery store, which I have done before, but I prefer to make my own. So we're just going to cover this with a bonnet, and we're going to let this sit for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll press it into the pans, and then we'll have pizza dough. We'll be back. It's been about 10 minutes, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here. It's had enough time to rest. You don't need it to rise all that much. I just want to take half, and then I'm going to go ahead and spread it in one of my pizza pans. So what I like to do is you can kind of eyeball what half will be. And that's going to be about half. Let's see. That's about even. Yeah. Maybe there's a little bit more on there. I'll just pinch off a piece. Set that aside, and I'll bring my pan over. And it's easy to spread this. I'm not going to put anything on my pan. I'm just going to kind of, you know, arrange the dough so it's round. And I'm just going to start to push it where I want it to be. And I'm going to turn the pan at the same time.
I'm going to toss it in the air.
I'm not going to toss it in the air because it will land on the floor. And you don't want to eat pizza dough that's landed on the floor in my house. Anybody with pets will understand. This kind of spreads out in the pan very nicely. It's very easy dough to work with. If you find that it's a little tough to work with, just let it rest for another 5 minutes or so, but I don't think we're going to need to do that here today. And you can use bread flour or you can use all-purpose flour in this. If you use bread flour, which I did today, you're going to have a higher gluten content, and it is going to be a little bit tougher to press into the pan. Last week I used an all-purpose flour, and it went on here just like butter. It was fantastic. But if you give it a minute, come back to it, it'll spread out just fine. And this is spreading out fine, no problems. And you press the other one in the pan just the same way. And that is how you make homemade pizza dough. Easy peasy stuff. just like that. And if you put the pan on your counter like I have, I've got my little plastic placemat on the bottom underneath here. It makes it turn really easy with absolutely no effort. And you just keep pushing and turning and pushing and turning, and you're going to eventually get to where you need to be. So that is how you make pizza dough, really easy. Now you have no excuse. Give it a try. Thank you. I hope you try it, and I hope you love it. And thank you for joining me in my kitchen today. And until next time, I'll see ya.